Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me here to speak today. Ice, water, and fire has shaped our world. And I thought that this would be a very appropriate thing to talk about because it is a Shape the World conference. I'm going to quote Winston Churchill here: the farther backward you look, the further forward you are likely to see. What's the relevance? This little map here shows you what Southeast Asia looked like 12,000 years ago. You could walk from Myanmar all the way to the Philippines, to Papua New Guinea, and take a short boat ride to Australia. 12,000 years ago, Sundaland. It wasn't ASEAN, it was Sundaland. This is Southeast Asia today. And this is Southeast Asia and all the ice melts. So, there's been a lot of talk about global warming. Some people say it's true, some people say it's rubbish. But I think we can all comfortably believe that ice tells the story. And here is ice's story. In 1936, in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, Papua, you actually had glaciers on the mountains. That was 1936, 2005, hardly anything. This is in Alaska, a glacier in 1913, and the same glacier in 2012. So, ice is telling us a story here. And this is in the Andes, South America, 1978, 2004. This is the Rocky Mountains, 1898, 2003. This is Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, 1993, and the year 2000. So, we can decide to believe the people who say it's not true, there is no such thing as climate change, it's not warming up, or we can choose to believe this ice doesn't run. This is world consumption of fossil fuels. In the first 150 years, it was 75 billion tons. In the next 50 years, it was 260 billion tons. And in the last 10 years, it was 110 billion tons. This slide tells you what we're dealing with. When you combust 1 ton of hydrocarbon, you remove 3.5 tons of oxygen from the atmosphere. You produce 3 tons of carbon dioxide and 1.5 tons of water. So in 2010, just in that 1 year ago, we removed 45 billion tons of oxygen and added nearly 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide. These are numbers verified by the energy companies here. People talk about the greenhouse effect. What exactly is this greenhouse effect all about? The sun's light keeps the planet warm. Greenhouse gases have a very positive role to play. And that positive role is to keep the energy of that sun's heat on the planet when the gas is in the right quantities. Because otherwise we would have the heat coming in from the sun in the day and it would get extremely cold at night. Greenhouse gases help keep that heat in. Okay? But we have affected one of the major greenhouse gases, and that is carbon dioxide. This tells you the level of carbon dioxide that has been studied from ice core samples which we have taken which have given us readings back to about 800,000 years. Here you see some of the cycles from 400,000. And you can see the carbon dioxide go down to as low as about 180 and go up to about 300 parts per million. And this is carried on for the last 400,000 years. But we seem to have exceeded that level. Very much so. We've moved it from the point at which there never was any carbon dioxide levels higher than 300. We have now taken it to 400 parts per million. Now, it's important to realize that for every degree rise in the atmosphere can hold 7% more moisture. Water vapor. Water vapor is also a greenhouse gas. So you have a 1 degree rise created by carbon dioxide, you have 7% more moisture in the air, you have another temperature rise because of that moisture in the air, which then creates this little feedback loop. So for every 1 degree created by carbon dioxide, the effective rise in temperature is 3 degrees centigrade. This represents the history of sea levels from just 25,000 years ago to present day. As you can see there, when CO2 levels were about 180 parts per million, sea levels were 120 meters lower. Nature goes through this feedback cycle. It reaches a balance. And the last balance was reached when we hit about 300 parts per million, and sea levels are where they are today. However, we are now at 400 parts per million. That stage 2 is about to take place. We have messed around with the atmosphere. It is going to reach a new balance between temperature and ice and water. This is Singapore without sea level rise. This is what happens if you have 1 degree additional global warming, 13 meter rise. This is what happens at 4 degrees. I'll just go back so we can see that 0, no rise. We have this 1 degree, 13 meters, 4 degrees, 40 meters. What does this really mean to ASEAN? All our cities are gone. %33% of 200 capital cities in the world are all underwater in Iceland. Okay. Let's see what's happening. A 3-inch rise in Florida, 3 inches. Changes frequency of floods by 200 to 300%. Just go back for your reference. That was 1997 to 2006, frequency of floods. 2007 to 2016, frequency of floods. Same numbers. It's more than just sea levels that affects us. There's also this thing called the king tide, which happens when the sun moves Earth along one direction. We have a high tide. And that coincides with a rise. Further coincides with a cycle or a hurricane. That's when we have serious problems. We create low pressure zones that raise the sea level. The higher temperatures of the sea is already creating differentials, stronger winds, more moisture in the air. When we build barrages and seawalls, that's to keep the water out. Then when you have very torrential downpours within the walls, how do you get the water out? Just very simply, this is what happens in drainage systems. They're meant to have outflows which are totally free. When your outflows are filled, you have difficulty. Now, why did I come up with all this? It's because I'm in the waste industry. You're probably wondering, what's he talking about? He's in the waste. I was in the waste industry and I started to look at waste. Today, we have a lot of rivers that have run off into the ocean. We have landfills, a lot of waste. We have a lot of deserts, and they're growing in size. And in Southeast Asia, we have this thing called a haze problem when we decide to burn our waste. Now, business as usual, if we had, that's what happens in the international water grid, that water runoff from rivers could be turned into revenues, be commoditized. The landfill problems that we have, we should be looking at energy from this waste. The wastelands that we have, we should not be cutting down our rainforests, but we should be planting deserts because we have drip irrigation and all these technologies. And we shouldn't be having a haze problem from fire because we should be building up our biomass and using it for compost, which we could then use to green the deserts. We have water, we have wind. So, Southeast Asia is a magical place. We have a lot of rivers, rainforests. It's time we decided to do something. And that's what the International Water Grid is about. It's about moving water from areas where they're abundant to areas where they're scarce. And basically to use the land that you have there to grow plants. And a lot of areas where we have abundant water in ASEAN. Same thing exists in Central Africa and also South America. And we also have very, very large areas of deserts which are growing. It's Africa, the Arabian Desert, Gobi Desert, North America. Deserts are growing. That's in Australia. And this is what we need to do to reduce those CO2 levels. We need to grow plants. Plants need water. So if we get the water to the plants, grow the plants in the desert, every 1.5 tons of water we take out of the cycle, we also take out 3 tons of carbon dioxide. We produce 1 ton of plant hydrocarbon, which could be energy or food. And we also replenish the oxygen in the environment. That's the 3.5 tons. We reverse what we do with fossil fuels when we grow plants. We've done a wonderful job in Singapore, but I'm afraid the wonderful job in Singapore is not going to stop global warming. It really has to be done on a global scale. Okay, so it will cool the planet, it will cut out carbon dioxide, it will replenish the oxygen, but it will also do a whole lot of other things. What's it going to do? We're going to stop forced migration. As the deserts grow, people move into cities, they create the problems that cities have. Imagine if water levels went up in ASEAN. You create a migration issue within ASEAN. Okay? People are going to move from the farms, which are flooded, back into cities, and this is going to create bigger problems. So we need to be able to address these problems urgently. This graph remains consistent on the top. And what it represents is 4.3 billion tons of fossil fuel, of oil that is produced annually. On your extreme left, you will see the distribution of that oil today. 9% goes into lubricants, 4% goes into plastics, and the rest, 87%, is used for fuel. Out of the 4.3 billion tons, 87% is burned. What we are projecting is to tell oil and gas that they have to start diverting fuel-based oil into more plastics. 1% a year reduction in fuel-based oils, 1% more every year for plastics for an international water grid. Because it is these plastic pipes that will run under the oceans and will move water. This is what will happen. This line represents the CO2 emissions. Now don't look at the scale on the left, look at the scale on the right, because you know it's 3 times more. So there are 4.3 billion tons. Actually, 87% of the 4.3 billion tons produces the red line of carbon dioxide. So that red line will slow down over time if more fuel-based oils are diverted, and more plastic pipes will be used for more water flows, which will mean consent to more plants being grown, more carbon dioxide plucked out of the atmosphere on an annual basis. And that blue line represents what we expect in the way of carbon dioxide being removed. And you can see that if we follow this, it still takes 22 years for us to just pick up the carbon dioxide that we are generating. Okay? That's the point at which we pick up. But if you look at the area under each of those lines, that's different. It takes much longer to take the carbon dioxide of the area. So this is a very important graph for us because this is what we need to do. And if you don't do this, then you have the water rise. I don't even know if this is going to stop that water from rising, because there is this little feedback loop. It takes time for nature to balance out its act. But this is a solution that will embrace the oil and gas industry as a part of the solution. Because today, nothing is happening because climate change and oil and gas are at loggerheads. This brings both parties to a solution. Okay? Now, there is obviously, if you have less and less oil being produced for fuel, you're going to have a shortage of energy. And that energy needs to be made up from renewables. And from a lot of things that we today combust, throw away, put into landfills, that produce methane gas. It's also a greenhouse gas. It's 22 times worse than carbon dioxide. So we're going to start looking. We cannot combust, incinerate our waste. We cannot put it in landfills. We really have to start utilizing the energy that the sun is giving us for photosynthesis and to use that energy back as a fuel. Right? So this has got to be the future of food. We need to manage the food waste and green waste and the biomass. Southeast Asia has a tremendous amount of biomass. And this was just a little study about waste in Kuala Lumpur, Greater Kuala Lumpur. We produce about 12,000 tons. 4,800 tons goes into is organic waste, and the rest are paper, plastic, metal, and construction waste. And if we manage our waste for value, it actually gives us usable methane gas, fertilizer. And if you look at that, what is 350 tons of methane gas every year? 27,000 gas tanks. It's a lot of, that's a lot of methane going into the atmosphere today. No? That's a lot of methane going into the atmosphere, creating a greenhouse effect. If we recycle our paper rather than burning, cut down 30,000 less trees every day. We're going to start learning to recycle. We're going to start looking after nature. If we want nature to look after us, we're going to start looking after nature. So, just looking at that in Malaysia, if today we spend about 800 million ringgit to move that waste from homes and businesses and put them in landfills. What we need to do is work not in isolation, but work together as a world to now solve the problem. Managing our waste as an infrastructure. Today we have all these things. Water started off as a bucket system, today it's on tap. Sewage started as a bucket system. Many of you are too young here to realize it, but I do. It started off as a bucket system, and today it's just a flush toilet. You don't even have the truck come to your septic tank, everything's in the central sewer. Power supply used to be your little lamps. Today we have electricity grids. Transportation used to be all of this. Today we have MRTs, LRTs, and all these other things. City gas used to be in tanks, today it's piped. But the next utility to move underground is going to be solid waste. How to manage it properly. Now, why have all these actually migrated from bucket systems to central systems? Is basically because we wanted to reduce cost, operational cost, mess, hygiene, and energy. All these things basically reduce energy. They may be convenient for us, but they all reduce energy. So, pneumatic waste collection, we basically have systems where you can throw garbage into chutes, they get stored, and moved into a central plant using these aerators, and people could actually separate the different types of waste and put them into different types of ponds, different types of containers. So you could keep waste separated. Separation of your waste is key. Incinerating your waste really is leading to more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere without really generating energy. We have another system, but this is a very interesting concept. It's called the shuttle system. The concept here basically utilizes an underground shuttle type device. It's shown here very simply, but basically a device like this can manage the waste in an entire city, and it can manage separate streams and do anything that we want as a waste management system, solid waste management system. It's called the Waste Shuttle. All this information is available on our website. I don't want to get into too much of detail here because our website will give you fun. Now, we could pretend that everything's going to be all right, and we could go for lunch today, walk out of here, and say, climate change, it's not true, somebody else's problem, someone's going to solve it. But I'm going to tell you, 10 civilizations ended because of Trump. From Egypt, South America, as close as Cambodia, India, China, Syria. People think the Syrian conflict is about religion. It's not. Syria went through 10 years of drought before the conflict started. It caused mass migration of people into cities. People couldn't get jobs. They couldn't feed their families. That's what happens. This, Dr. Jason Earl from Harvard University said this. When we excavate the remains of past civilizations, we rarely find any evidence that they made any attempts to adapt in the face of changing climate. I view this inflexibility as the real reason. We have to ask ourselves, we have a choice. Do we continue to do what we do and face the inevitable? Or do we make the difficult decisions now as our legacy to our children and the generations